I can see too many Marina here.
Yes, yes. I'm not too sure how that happened, but
Everybody need to change rename that profile name.
Yes.
I think I count 6 at the moment. I was wondering if it was just my computer, but maybe not.
Yes, I think it's for those who are using the Zoom link that I sent around this morning.
Right.
Hello and welcome.
Hello.
Wonder, do you know, Jane, how to change your name?
I'm not sure. I would imagine there's some sort of setting. Maybe have a fiddle around.
Yeah, blue dot there, you need to click the rename.
Sorry, what was that, Denise?
If you take that mouse to your profile and there's 3 blue dots, if you click there, it shows the rename. And you can rename your name. That was a long one.
Kia ora, Marina.
Mary, hello, how are you?
Why am I called Marina Matthews? I'm not, I'd love to be Marina Matthews for today, but today I'm being called Marina Matthews. My goodness, what the heck has happened?
Yes, I'm just duplicating all over the show. Jessica Connors has provided instructions for how we can change our names. So some of those who have used the LinkedIn Zoom that the Zoom that I sent around this morning, you can just press the 3 buttons. It's by the participant list.
So if you click onto participants and then find the one that says Marina Matthews, me, in brackets, you should be able to rename it.
Boom, I just changed, just like that.
There we go.
Fantastic. Lovely to have you here, Mary. Hello, Mrs. Chen. Hello.
Hello, how are you, Marina?
Very well, thank you. Mrs. Chen and Professor Chen down in Christchurch. Mute yourself.
Can you see me? Amelia.
Hello there. Who waved?
Amelia.
Oh, Amelia. Hello.
Hi.
So we just have some instructions in the chat. If you use the link that I sent through this morning, if you just click on the name, you can rename yourself. I promise that I'm not in all of these black boxes.
I am aware that if participants join later, they're not actually able to see what was in the chat before they joined. So you might just need to do a bit of a PSA.
这是外声音呐。现在你就是要学历，明天你就要 你讲你无声音，你讲现在没有声音。你要可能爱去吹远了。
If there are any others that would like to introduce themselves, please feel free. Oh, hello, Alan.
当你有声，你都无我都对对。
So I was checking that it was worth coming in for.
是。
Hi, Stephanie. For those of you who are just joining and you're showing up, your profile showing up Marina Matthews, you can change that by right-clicking on your profile and renaming yourself your name.
Sure.
I actually quite liked being you for a moment, Marina.
It's very complimentary, very great. I see quite a few of you are renaming yourselves. Hello, Christine Young. How are you?
Hi.
Okay, I'll just send it through to you again.
Hello. Hello, Amelia. Hi, Mum.
Hi, Meng.
Susan Warren is on. Ready to go.
Yes, I'm here. I'm just still eating my lunch, so I've got my my video off from it.
Got a bit to do. I think everybody needs to go on mute. Got 280 people online. Marina, I can't see Meng. Is he online?
No, not yet. Meng's just driving from a tangi, so he's going to pull over at the side of the road and join us. Oh, here he goes. Hello, Meng.
Where is he?
I'm here. How are you all? Kia ora, Mai, Marina.
Hey, what time is it? Very
Kia ora,
good.
Meng.
1 minute to go.
Good, Meng. Just got there.
How are you?
I'm all right. I've got a court deadline. I've got to file submissions by 5, so I'm just going to be away for a little while. So if you could just finish it.
Yeah, you're a machine. You're a machine.
No, not at all. This is important.
Those of you who are just joining, please don't forget to turn yourself onto mute.
Jay, Ava, come here. Come. No, it's fine. Sorry, I'm not actually.
Oh, we need mute.
Yes, yeah. Just mute yourself. And then also, if you are coming up as Marina Matthews rather than yourself, you can just change your name in the profile by right-clicking the 3 dots, and we will I'll say it again in the chat so that those people who have registered, have used the link that I sent through this morning are coming up.
Yeah, that would be great, Marina, because it's hard for me to tell who's online because everyone says they're Marina Matthews and I know that's not true. The other thing is it's 12 noon, so let's kick off.
All right. Well, mihi maira kia koutou katoa. Aha ko he mihi iti, he mihi and e mihi mahana kia koutou. Warm greetings to all of you who have joined us here today for this session on championing super diversity and talking about how to lead and to make a difference. I will just briefly go over some housekeeping. So first of all, for those of you who have used the link that I sent through this morning, it may be that your profile name is showing up Marina Matthews. You can change that by going to participants list and then clicking on the one that says me, and then with the 3 dots, then entering your name. Mary Haddock did it quickly just before.
As I actually said, I quite enjoyed being Marina Matthews for all of 3 minutes, to be fair. Hello, May.
Kia ora, Mary. And then the other housekeeping matter was, if you are joining in, please remember to keep yourself on mute so that we can listen to the 2 fantastic speakers that we have today. We have the Race Relations Commissioner Meng Foon, who will be providing, many of you had attended our previous session on Behind the Mask, and the Commissioner will be providing us with an update on what has happened and what the Human Rights Commission have been doing to help decrease racism. And then we'll also have Mai Chen, who is the chair of the Superdiversity Institute, New Zealand Asian Leaders, New Zealand Asian Lawyers, and Superdiverse Women. He'll be talking about that you can't change the world by being agreeable. I will then share some ideas that we've been provided by the 30 Superdiversity champions who had identified themselves at the previous Behind the Mask session because they want to be a voice for their communities to combat racism and discrimination. And then we will open it up to all of your questions. We've received about 50 questions prior to the session, but I want to ensure that we all have an opportunity to ask both the Commissioner and May any questions that you have. The last thing is I do ask that you introduce yourself in the chat. Just let us know who you are and where you're from. And I will now pass it on to Commissioner Foon to talk to us about an update on what the Human Rights Commission has been doing. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Marina, and tēnā koutou tātou kei raro I te maru o tātou kaihanga I te rā nei me ki ka nui te mihi ki a tātou ko whakawhai tēnei. Thank you for your welcome, Marina, and Mai and team for organising another fantastic chat for all of us. Absolutely important. So championing super diversity, I've given a little bit of thought, you know, and the notion of how do we actually champion super diversity is probably not a new concept, but an idea that actually came from one of my uncles at home, Dr. Apirana Mahuika and Apirana Ngata. And they said, in order to actually have systems change, we must be in the decision-making seats of power, of organizations, and at the coalface of where we can actually make change as well. What they meant by that was back in the days when Māori were having a difficult time with the Crown, discriminated, land taken, they really needed to infiltrate, and it might sound like a bit of a war spy type word, but infiltrate the seats of government at the highest level, and that is Parliament itself, and also at the ministries, chief executive roles, levels 1, 2, 3, and also at the coalface of where our people are seen most. And that's in the education area, that is in the justice area, that is in the business arena. And when I look at our communities and most of the migration that has come here, most of us actually partake in the business world. Very few of us actually are part of the state services, the ministries of government. In actual fact, when you have a look at the number of Asian or diverse ethnic people in the state services, it is minute. And if we're not there in the seats, we should not be complaining, because it's very difficult to complain from the outside unless you actually are at the coalface making those decisions. Even though the current situation is the government is trying their best to eradicate bullying, unconscious bias, racism within the state service, we still need our people there. Our people need to actually reflect the faces going into the future. And I would say if we are going to be doing anything, that we actually need to change our way that we encourage our children to participate in public service. Being part of public service is a noble job. It's not a lesser role than anything if we are going to have systematic change in the government, local government, and other organizations. There are hardly any ethnic people on boards of all the major boards that the government appoints people to. And so we need to actually skill ourselves up and get onto those organizations and start adding policies that will actually enhance the well-being, the harmonious well-being of our communities, to actually cut out all the ills of society. One of my uncles just passed away, Ivan Kwok. He was a senior advisor at Treasury. He had a great working relationship with Māoridom, and hence his funeral is going to be held at Pipitia Marae, a great honour bestowed upon him. And his notion was actually, you know, for Māori by Māori, for Asians by Asians. And we need to actually encourage our kids not to become, unfortunately, it's not in your realm, like lawyers and accountants and doctors. We actually need them to be public servants as well, to become governors, to actually participate in parliament, to participate in local government, to participate in all levels of society. We need to actually encourage our children to become police persons, to be judges, to be school teachers, to be university lecturers. We actually need them at all levels. I doubt there is actually any university professors or directors that are actually on the boards of any of the major universities. I doubt that there is one. So we actually need people at all levels. And I encourage you, this is, the change comes from many aspects. It just does not come from just me sitting in my office, wherever I go. It is about all of us, and all of us can actually make that change, and it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while, and I encourage each and every one of you to actually encourage our children and other families to actually look at how we can actually change, and that is by participation, not through stealth, but definitely through wanting to actually make change in our society. We have, I do a bit of firefighting now and again. The big stories now is Black Lives Matter and statues that are demeaning, that have a history. My position on those statues is that leave them there. They may not be in the right place, and if they need to be moved, move them somewhere else. But they are a reminder that we, the colonial system has been an oppressive system with oppressive laws and governance, and that we must not let those statues and plaques be a reminder that we must not go there into the future. Because if we delete them, we will not know. And that's why it's damn important that we actually learn about New Zealand history, and the Prime Minister has done that. And in 2021, we will be learning our New Zealand history and our local history. And the history doesn't mean it's just like Pākehā history or Māori history. It's about all of our histories. And it is incumbent for us to actually lobby hard and write our own stories. It doesn't have to be theses or complicated books of 1,000 pages. It could start off like, this is where I come from. And we arrived at this stage, and this is a little like, this is a cat, and it is a white cat or a black cat. And this is how many kittens that I have, and this is what we eat, and this is what I believe in, and this is my place of work, and this is my place of worship. It's as simple as that, because it needs to actually start from the primary schools right over to secondary school. And as you go on to university, well, you'll choose your own subjects in terms of life. But definitely there is a place for history through education, that we actually stop the arrogance and ignorance. We stop the ignorance to prevent arrogance going into the future. We have some proactive programs, and Give Nothing to Racism is actually going to be launched very soon. In the end of July, we're having a soft launch to see and feel how it is going to go, and tweaking it, and then full launch in August. We're having a mini campaign, and unfortunately it is a mini campaign in terms of it is focused on Asian people, because Asian people have had the butt of COVID, racism and discrimination since it first started. I'm pleased to say that it has abated, but the ones that hit the news, people are still being hurt, and there are some people being assaulted, and it is alarming that this stuff actually happens. We continue to actually work with the State Services Commission, the police, the Ministry of Education, to actually drive out bullying and racism in those organisations. They call it unconscious bias now, a soft word. We should actually accept that we do have a racial discrimination problem in the state service, and we should actually deal with it as it is, not trying to soften it by other fancy words that people don't quite understand what it is. I think it's actually not unconscious bias, it's actually conscious bias, and that conscious bias is absolutely racism. So I need all of us to be together in this vision of harmonious communities. I need all of us to actually encourage our children to continue to participate in the public service, to participate in the vocations that are not generally part of us as migrants coming into New Zealand. But if you look back at home, where you come from, or your ancestors come from, public service is right there. There are millions of Chinese teachers, but there aren't hundreds of Chinese teachers here in New Zealand. There are millions of directors and governors in all of your countries, but there are very few here, and it's very important that we start that infiltration, like my Uncle Api said, going forward. Our role is together better. And so I just had an interview with Swedish radio today, and they were actually alarmed that we actually weren't teaching New Zealand history. In Sweden, they said the first thing that you do is you learn about yourselves, your own country, before you even learn anything about anyone else. And so, you know, this is from someone that actually is coming from outside, looking at the perception that we're a harmonious community, better than most, and we are in a lot of ways, but relationships are skin deep. And, we get the geopolitical aspects that influence how we act and react in our country. China, Hong Kong, China, Taiwan, Israel, Palestine, India against the Muslim people, India, Kashmir, American politics, British politics, they all end up at our doorsteps. And I say how thin our relationships are is because each year there are around about 10,000 marriages and there are 7,000 separations. I'm not saying that the people that got married this year are going to all be separated. I'm just saying that that's how thin relationships are. And we need to continue to work on it. It's going to be a long journey, but I have a fantastic vision that we are going to get there one day. And I have great hope in our children. Our children are the future of our nation and building nationhood. And as you know, over the years, as our nation is becoming more diverse, and soon it will be over 50% that are going to be ethnic, Pacific and Māori. Love is made in the bedroom and the future of our nation is made in the bedroom. So Mai, Marina, all of our team here today listening to what we have to say, we have got a big task, but the task can start at home. And I encourage you to encourage our children to be part of New Zealand's decision making.
Kia ora, kia ora. And that's a very good message. And so, Meng, thank you very much for that. And Marina, if it's okay, shall I just now talk about what is the best way to champion super diversity from my perspective?
Yes, thank you.
All right, very good. So the key point that I want to make is that so many of you are here online today because you want to change the world. So the important thing is for us to focus on what it is that prevents us from doing that. And I think that it's important to acknowledge in ourselves that what often holds us back is how we were raised. Often as girls, we are raised not to speak up. In India, they say chup. In my culture, they say, "不要讲话." Particularly for me, I was born the youngest of 4 children, and I was born a girl. So in my Confucian culture, I was bottom of the pecking order. And then we immigrated to New Zealand, and that actually was harder because actually I didn't speak English, and by the time I'd learned to speak English, it became very clear to me that people did not expect anybody who looked like me to express an opinion or to have a view. And so it became even harder. You feel silenced. You see things that you don't like, but you squash them, you swallow them. You don't speak out. And so I do want to refer to a podcast that was done by Deepa Narayan. It's a TED Talk. She talks about the 7 ways that women in India are silenced. I think many people would say, oh yes, but that's Indian women, or that's Chinese women. But we're in New Zealand, and this is a country that believes in free speech, and so we don't have those issues here. Well, that is not true. As an independent director on the Bank of New Zealand board, I did an audit of New Zealand boardrooms. And I interviewed 50 of the top company directors and chairs, and I discovered that everybody thinks that diverse thinking is great and we should all speak out. But the reality is that when you talk to diverse thinkers, they're told that they shouldn't speak out. And this is what is holding them back. I think in the Kiwi culture, we are told that we should all try and be agreeable. And I think that is more so because we are a very small country. So this is not like America where you can annoy someone and go to a different state. If you annoy someone in New Zealand, you will simply meet them again. So you are not able to tell them what you really think of them. And they don't forget if you speak out. And I want to point that out because if you think, well, I'm a Kiwi now, and so in this culture, the Kiwi culture is not holding me back, I want you to think again. Even those company directors who got there because they are elites, because they have held prominent positions, because they are considered to be leaders and to be outspoken, express the view that it's very hard to speak out. You sit on a board, you're having a debate, there's a COVID crisis on at the moment, should we all take a pay cut as directors? And you know that the chair doesn't support it. Do you speak out or do you stay silent? Are you agreeable? Or particularly, I think, if you look different, and some of us feel passionate about these issues because we ourselves have been subjected to discrimination, we think, do we want to stand out or do we just want to swallow it, remain silent, shut up? Because otherwise people will think that we're being difficult. I want to give you another perspective. And the other perspective is that sometimes because you look different or you come from a different experience of life, it's actually easier to speak out. I think because I look like this, nobody quite understands where I'm going to be coming from. They don't expect me to fit a box because I don't look like anybody in that box. And as a consequence of that, I am able to define who I am and to speak out and to say what it is I think needs to be said. I'm giving this message today because I do not think that you can ever change the world if all you are trying to do is to be agreeable, which is what our culture requires, mainly of women, but frankly of everybody. Don't be difficult, pull your head in, toe the line. Oh God, there she goes again, or there he goes again. Bit passionate, but too passionate. Not sure that they can be professional, too emotional. Think about all the ways that our culture shuts people down. And it's an important message because you're never going to champion superdiversity if you're too scared to speak out. Let me tell you that no major change in any society has ever happened without people being prepared to speak out and to protest. And the Black Lives Matters movement is no different. No protest is ever right. There's always something wrong with the way they're protesting. You can't control those things, but you can control yourself. And so my message to you today is simply this: be clear about the things that hold you back. And sometimes those who are closest to us are the ones who tell us that we should shut up. They say, look, don't cause trouble. You're just going to end up being a target. Keep your head down. And it's hard not to take that advice. You've just heard the Race Relations Commissioner explaining to you that people are being beaten up just because they're Asian. So that is cause enough for you to shut up, because why draw attention to yourself? You've got enough problems because of the way you look. The difficulty is this, that if we all shut up, we'll all keep getting beaten up. And it won't just be us, it'll be everybody. Remember, at first they came for X and it wasn't me, so I didn't say anything. And by the time they came for me, there was nobody else to speak up for me. So this message is important. It's never the right time. You'll always think of a reason why you should be quiet. And there will always be people who oppose you speaking. Sometimes it will be because they underestimate you. But sometimes it will be because they are frightened of you. They don't want your message. They don't want your agenda. They will be part of the patriarchy or the matriarchy. They like the status quo. It gives them power. They are dominating. They are in charge. They're the ones who are superior. You are the one who is inferior. They are threatened by your message. There are plenty of reasons why people do not want you to speak. They don't want you to champion superdiversity. Actually, they're very happy if you just come along to this podcast or this Zoom session and very happily hang out with other people who believe you should champion superdiversity. That's great. But if you leave here and decide that you will not be chup, you will not 不要讲话, you will not shut up, but that actually you will speak, then they will not like that. And so what I'm saying to you is, you don't have to speak out in a way which is unattractive. Now, having said that, the fact that you speak is often what people think is unattractive anyway. They just like you to shut up. So you can't please all the people all the time, but you can be thoughtful and savvy about when you speak. You can also speak in a way which is more influential and more likely to bring people on side. Being respectful, being knowledgeable, being well briefed is incredibly important. If you are articulate, then it is very difficult for people to shut you down. It is more difficult. If you're rude and disrespectful and you say things which are not factual, then you will be shut down, and so you should be. But I leave you with this final thought. You've got views to express, don't hesitate. My advice to you is plan to speak and get in first, because quite often if you don't speak first, the opportunity closes. Other people dominate the space, and by the time you've summoned the courage to speak, they'll say, no, I'm sorry, it's over, it's finished, take your place in the queue, and you don't get to speak. Now, some of you will say, well, it's easy for you, May, you do it for a living. It's true. I see Karen Price is here as well. She does it for a living too. There are some of us who talk for a living. And there was a time when I would go blank and could not talk. Now I have to talk every day. So if I did go blank, that would make it very inefficient. It's true, I do talk for a living. But I have to say that even for me, it is sometimes hard to speak out, because you know it will be unpopular, because you know that the people who most need to hear what you have to say don't want to hear it, because you don't want people saying, oh God, there she goes again, or you would say that because you're a Chinese woman. But the reality is that if we do not speak up, those of us who have experienced discrimination, if we do not create space for other people who experience discrimination to speak, then who will? There is no point experiencing discrimination if you don't use it to save others from the same experience. If you don't make room for other people who look different or are being picked on to escape that experience, because you know what it's like to be locked in a cage, to have your wings broken, to have people say, shh, we don't want to hear what you've got to say, then you have a special motivation and a special insight to be able to unlock cages and to be able to allow other people to speak. Thank you. But I think John had a point he wanted to make. No, I'm sorry. I'd now like to hear from Sue, because Sue has experienced this. Oh, thank you. But I think you cut across Mary. Mary was trying to speak. Or to ask a nice question of someone, not an aggressive or rude question, but for me to say, Marina, tell me why you have particular expertise in this area and could really contribute to this debate. We've all had the downsides. Why don't we champion superdiversity by being the solution? The one thing we all know as we grow older is that we can't control anybody else. Other people will discriminate against us. They will be rude. They will be disrespectful. I can't stop them, but I can control my own action. And I can control when I do and I don't speak. There are times when I don't speak, but today I knew that I had to speak, because it is important for us to understand why we don't speak, including in this wonderful culture where we think that we all have freedom to speak out, and to tell you that this culture is no different from every other culture. It also wants you to shut up and not say things which are uncomfortable. And often in championing superdiversity, you have to say things that are uncomfortable. You have to say that it isn't just an issue about women. There are many reasons why people get discriminated against. It may be gender, it may be ethnicity, it may be language, it may be culture, it may be sexuality or disability. It's also unpopular to say, no, I'm sorry, just because that person looks like a Pākehā New Zealander does not mean that they can't champion superdiversity. When I reflect on my life and I reflect on all the people who have championed and helped me when I was being discriminated against, I would have to confess to you that 75%, maybe 80% of them were not super diverse. They were Pākehā men and women, mostly men, who have helped and said, no, let's give her a go. No, let's hear what she's got to say. Yes, okay, some of them want you to shut up. Some of them are part of the patriarchy and matriarchy, but some of them are not. So I end by simply saying, the only person you can control is you. And if you do not speak up, then you cannot champion superdiversity. It is not complicated. Marina's now going to read to you all of the feedback we've had from 30 people as to how you might champion it. People say to me, oh, this is hard. No, actually, it's not hard. You are a repository of knowledge as to how to champion superdiversity. Many of you are super diverse, but you have to first choose to open your mouth and to speak up for what you know to be right. Thank you.
Is Raj Maharaj on the chat has said, very powerful stuff. And thank you very much, Commissioner Foon. I too, having just read the Office of Ethnic Communities and the Ministry for Women, Ethnicity, Māori and Gender stats on state services, boards and committees, we do have a long way to go in participation in our state sector. As Mai had said, we did have some ideas from our Superdiversity champions, including, and I'll just quickly summarise some of the ideas, including continuing the drive of diversity in the volunteering sector, and likewise with more diversity in NGOs. And I know that from is working with the Centre of Social Impact on diversity in on NGOs. We also had an idea, Carol and Providence. Carol, can I ask you to briefly describe your idea to us all? Once you unmute yourself, yes.
Thank you. Kia ora, Marina, and hello to everyone, and thank you for inviting me. I was really caught by the concept of what superdiversity was. As I had said, it wasn't a phrase that I had come across before. I'd heard it on this forum. And so I went to look for the definition, and it was the percentage of a resident population that was born outside of the country. And though I don't know exactly how you arrived, how the definition of 25% was arrived at, it was engaging. It came across immediately as a 1 in 4 catchphrase. And I thought, what a great idea to think about picking out that 1 in 4, because it will apply across the spectrum of people who are born outside of a city. So what I felt was, for example, that 1 in 4 might be used as a catchphrase, which could pierce through people's, like, the public consciousness, and where you have small groups who are only perhaps interested in their own particular agendas, you might be able to bring them together for a common cause. Also, that 1 in 4 thought could be set as a goal. For example, if there are 1 in 4 of us in a city who are born outside, then we should have 1 in 4 representation, perhaps. That could be used as a minimum representation on councils or on school boards, or it could be incorporated as a theme in cultural events like the 25% of us. And because it cut across the different sectors, I thought, what a good idea to reduce the type of jostling for position and the intersectional hostilities that could arise from each small group trying to pursue their own agenda. But little did I know that in the space of the time of writing that and coming back to this session, we would have such a huge, momentous change entirely across the world that shows us the power of togetherness and what people coming together can really mean for a movement. Because I think everybody might agree with me that the Black Lives Matter civil rights movement that we have witnessed in the last few days and weeks have been exceptional in terms of the multi-generational, multi-ethnic, and other diverse indicators. And that's something that has separated it out from civil rights movements of the past. And in that togetherness, the power was harnessed, or additional power was harnessed, that might not have been there before. And I think that we're in a really cultural point in New Zealand that is, we can go down one of several pathways, but we have to harness this momentum and get allies and bring people together for a common theme and a common purpose.
Thank you very much, Dr. Providence. I mean, that kind of lines up with one of the suggestions that came from State Services Commission staff, was that using social media to encourage awareness about te reo and about languages and using particular language. I feel like social media at the moment is educating a lot of us around allies and the importance of togetherness. I also just wanted to ask Susan Warren to briefly talk about her idea.
Kia koutou, ngā mihi nui kia koutou, and especially to Meng and Mai and Marina, thank you very much for organising this and for sharing. I had an email landed in my inbox last night, and then the same thing arrived on Facebook. And I thought, actually, gosh, I'm going to this meeting this afternoon and this completely aligns. So what arrived was a message from a public letter from a group of organisations in Australia to the Australian government, actually to the two main parties, calling for bipartisan action against racism. And I just thought, well, here we are all passionate about this issue. We're already meeting about it. Is this something concrete that we could do together? That we could come up with our own position that we want government to act on? And here we've got this amazing, I'm an educator, so I'm going to call it a teachable moment. Because, and it's teachable for several reasons. You know, we've just come through COVID. We have the whole international Black Lives Matter campaign, and it's election year. Politicians, we all know, listen more in election year than they do at any other time. So my proposal is that we consider the possibility of putting together a public letter to the parties calling for government action. There's so much we can do on our own, but there's some things we need government to do, and now's the time to ask.
It was great, good words. And what I might do is after this session, I'll share the rest of the ideas that the Superdiversity Institute, the Superdiversity Champions had. And also a link to the TED Talk that May had spoken about with Depa and the CHUP TED Talk. But one question that's just come through now for you, May, if I could now move on to the questions, is what would your advice be for discrimination faced by a well-known popular non-ethnic employer to an ethnic employee? It's the classic David and Goliath situation, and sometimes it's easier to stay quiet should we confront those situations even after we've left the workplace? What's the best way forward in that situation? Oh, you're just on mute, May.
It sounds like you need some employment advice, but look, those situations are not easy, which is why you need to reach out and get support, which is why I say those of us who really want to champion superdiversity, it's really easy. Just roll up your sleeves and get your hands dirty. People will reach out to us all the time and need support, and if we don't provide them with support, they won't be able to speak either. I think it's really difficult in that situation for you to go in, because they will say, oh, you're just imagining things. Clearly, you're not going to get anywhere unless you've got some evidence. And of course, as a lawyer, I would suggest that's first-hand accounts by witnesses, people who saw it happen, and also contemporaneous documentary evidence. But you're also going to need a support person to help you through that process. So unless you've got some pretty good evidence, it's always going to be difficult because people are going to say, oh, yeah, we're just imagining it. You know, the trouble is you've got a chip on your shoulder, you're a bit sensitive, you're a bit eggshell skull. So once again, like I say, be prepared before you speak and make sure that you are in a good position to be able to do so, so that it's less deniable.
Thank you. And just in line with that, we've got a couple of questions that have been sent in prior to the session, but building on what May had said about challenging Pākehā and their championing, Commissioner Foon, how can Pākehā New Zealanders make a practical difference and ally themselves to diversity issues?
I think they need to actually tell their own people, Pākehā to Pākehā, to actually learn more about themselves and learn more about the diversity in our country, because it's very difficult for myself, like a Chinese person telling Māori what to do or telling Pākehā what to do, but it's easier for a Pākehā person to tell Pākehā people what to do and Chinese people to tell Chinese people what to do, because they probably feel safer in that environment. You're actually treated as equals in terms of what you look like and your cultural background. And so, yeah, I think your own kind, like your situation here, Pākehā to Pākehā, because you do need champions within the different cultures or races to actually champion certain things. And I like the concept. You ever been to I'm sure you have interviewed Māori people, or Māori people have actually, wherever they go, they don't go by themselves. They always take support people. They always bring their whānau or their friends. There's always a shout out on Facebook that I am actually going to go for an interview, if anyone can come. It actually is a very strong message that this person actually has support, and don't you make sure that you are respected during that process, and even when they start work, and probably through marriage, you're not actually marrying each other, you're actually marrying the family. And so there's a lot of truth in that, and we actually need to demonstrate that physically as well, when we as people of different races go for job interviews, go to different events, even in the induction period, take your family along with you, take your friends with you, so you don't feel lonely.
Hey, did you have anything to add to that?
Sorry, are you referring it to me?
Yes. I was just asking if you had anything to add.
No.
So then there were also a couple of questions that were received about what Commissioner Foon and May thought about meritocracy. A few of the comments that had come through was that is meritocracy a good thing or a bad thing? So what about you, Commissioner Foon?
Yeah, look, it's a balance, isn't it? You do need special expertise in various areas, but the saying is that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And at the end of the day, you might have the skills, but if you can't get on with people, it is just, you just don't get anywhere. And I just cut back to the marriage. So technically, you're both able to have children, cohabitate together physically in a house, but if you can't get along together, your relationship is doomed, and your future and whatever you want is not going to be achieved. And so that actually goes out into the boardroom, goes out into the workplace, goes out to the different functions and events that we actually go to, and it's all about relationships. So it's very important that we do have a balance of culture and expertise.
I agree with that, and I also think that it's important for us to be clear about what we are good at doing. It is hard for us to speak from an area of lack of expertise. If we don't know what we're talking about, you should stop talking. So I think, meritocracy is simply practical. I think someone's just put through a comment about psychological safety. Look, you're not going to be psychologically safe if you're trying to do something you don't know about and you don't know about doing. So I think it's important, though. We've got so many people online today who have a lot of expertise in their areas. And what you need to do is very practically reach out from your base of expertise. There are things you know about. There are things you know about where you could help other people, given your expertise. So I think it is important for you to work from a base of what you know about. The worst thing is someone trying to make a bold statement when they don't know what they're talking about. I feel really sorry for them. It's the right, they've got their heart in the right place, but it's not a good thing to do.
Thank you. I just wanted to throw it to Kelly Feng to ask your question around the impact on resilience.
Thank you. I was going to just put out the question about how do we share our knowledge, and both Meng Foon and Mai Chen touch about the mental health and psychological, and also I really agree on those teaching within our family first, and let our children to be proud and to involve with this public servant, and also board level or government level. That's great to start. I think I'll probably start it tomorrow for my children too. But how this group is really rich like knowledge. How do we share our mental resilience and to the other groups that we can really all speak up and using our own expertise to champion this and to really stop racism and give nothing, because I'm kind of a service provider. I'm in the public servant. I'm a Asian Family Services. It's an NGO. We do see a lot of cases that are challenging with discrimination, racism related to over the COVID-19. And also there are limited resources and services available for those people at the times. And it's a still equity issue for the sector, health particular. So I'm just want to, put out there as the SUPERdiverse platform that how can we support in that public health arena, yeah.
Marina, would it be all right if Anna Satyanand speaks? She's online and she's commenting a word. I'd love to hear what Anna's got to say.
Kia ora everyone, it's Anya Satyanand. I'm really interested actually just in the word superdiversity, because I think it's such a powerful word, it's such a big and generous word. And I think one of the things that struck me a couple of years ago, I went across to a multicultural youth conference in Australia. One of the things that was really evident to me was that when Australians talk about multicultural young people, they're talking about brown young people, they're talking about recent immigrants to Australia, and they're also talking about Indigenous young people, but they are not talking about white Australians. And I think, to me, one of the things that I really love about the idea of superdiversity is that it actually describes the space between us. It doesn't describe, it describes us in our glorious entirety and all of our rainbow, you know, the generational diversity, cultural diversity, diversity in terms of gender and sexuality, all of these things. It encompasses everything, and it describes not individuals or individual groups, but actually the way in which we relate to one another with generosity and with kindness, a word that has been thrown around a lot in the last 12 weeks. And I think for me, it's that the word is an invitation as well to think about Aotearoa in a future-focused way, about how do we actually really generously appreciate what this means for us on a global stage. So kia ora.
Kia ora, and sorry, Anya, for getting your name wrong. It happens to me often, so I have to apologise to you. And can I say that I think the Superdiversity Institute has very much championed the importance of identity and giving sufficient space for everyone to have their own identity. People say to me, oh, well, you know, he's not super diverse because he's a white male. I'm sorry, he has a gender, he has an ethnicity. It's about the fact that we all have individual and unique identities, and it's about creating room to allow people to be able to express their identities, but also just to appreciate difference. No one wants to be stereotyped, whoever we are.
Kia ora. There was a question here for Mai about how we bring the discussion along, because many people on this Zoom meeting today, they work in diversity and inclusion, and they feel that they can't get their messages across to their employers or to their sectors. So did you have any advice or tips for how they can help accelerate those discussions?
Sure, you just have to make it relevant. So you have to connect it to where everybody else is at. Otherwise, you're talking about something and they're bored. Whenever you start talking about diversity or women, people roll their eyes and think, oh God, there they go again. So you have to make it relevant to them. I chair the People and Remuneration Committee at the Bank of New Zealand Board. You know, well, I don't start talking about diversity for the sake of it, but you know, if we're having a talent discussion and about how to make sure that we get the best talent in the room and to make sure that we're not poking them in one end of the sausage machine and they're falling out the other end, issues about identity and making them feel comfortable and accepted for who they are, and for there not to be discrimination, because we can't afford to discriminate if we want the best talent, become incredibly important. Also, you've got the Race Relations Commissioner here. If we don't have racial harmony, many of us will not enjoy living in this country as much as we do. We all know why we love living in New Zealand. It's generally peaceful. Although when I hear about the Maori woman getting whacked for, you know, walking up the Monga, you know, that sort of stuff should really worry all of us, because it's not the sort of place we want to live. So the key issue is to be thoughtful. And we've got a lot of thoughtful people online. You have to make it relevant. Don't think about where you are, think about where they are. Now, Professor Peter Chen, my father, is online. He's a great teacher. And the one thing he taught me is that if you're going to teach anybody, you have to connect with them. So there's no point standing where you are and saying, hey, the rest of you, could you listen to me and come to where I am? You have to go to where they are and start where they are. So, you know, there's lots of COVID issues at the moment now. And frankly, we need everyone pulling together if we're going to get the economy going. This is the worst time for there to be any discrimination, because actually we need to pull together.
Did you have anything to respond to that, to add to that, Commissioner Foon? Just not too sure.
I'm just walking to the funeral. So I just want to add a observation. I think it's very important that we actually don't isolate our Pākehā friends, because we actually need to do this together. And it's quite a dangerous area to actually create more difference and more divide, even though it has happened in the past. but we do need our Pākehā colleagues to actually be in the same frame of mind as super diverse Aotearoa. And so I just encourage that whenever we talk about these things, we do actually need to involve our Pākehā friends.
Mm. And if I could just add one more thing, Marina, and then I'll stop talking. It's simply this: if you do not open your lives up to other people, your Pākehā friends, they will never know what it's like to be different. I remember once a long time ago, a very, very prominent New Zealander who was a former Prime Minister said to me, "Oh, you're so lucky to be Asian. It must be such a wonderful experience." Well, I spent 2 hours explaining to him just how wonderful it really was. And he said, "Well, I never knew that." To which I responded, "Why did you not? Do you live under a rock?" But anyway, I went on to write an article called Discrimination in New Zealand, A Personal Journey. And all I'm saying to you is, you can't expect other people to understand your road if you do not open up yourself to telling them. It may seem obvious to you because it is what you live every day. Also, don't presume that other people don't know. You should always ask them. Quite often people say to me, "Well, what would he know? You know, he's just a white Pākehā New Zealander." Actually, you underestimate people all the time, just in the same way that people underestimate you. I think about all the white male CEOs who've supported the Superdiversity Institute because they've lived in Asia and worked there for longer than they've lived in New Zealand and known what it was like to be an outsider. That was the CEO of the second biggest health insurer in New Zealand. Russell Stannis, Vodafone, for years supported the Superdiversity Institute because he'd grown up in South and West Auckland. And so he just took it for granted that we were all multicultural. He grew up with Asians and with Pacifica and Maori. So I do think it's important to take the time to explain to people. It's hard because sometimes you don't want to give them an insight. We're all trying to pretend the imposter syndrome doesn't exist. We're all trying to fit in and appear that we're not different. But the reality is we are different and our experience is not the same. Oh, and I wanted to say, I've just joined the Women Emerging from Isolation movement. This is Julia Middleton. She's the woman that wrote the book on cultural capability, CQ. And Marina's going to send you the details. So there's a lot of wonderful, strong women online. To the extraordinary women, please join. It's important that you do. Oh, and hi, Mum and Dad.
Thank you very much. I'm so sorry, there are so many more questions that we could have put to Commissioner Foon and to Mai Chen, but we haven't had the opportunity because we've now run out of time, given that it's 1 o'clock. But I did want to thank the Commissioner, particularly given that he is headed to Atangi. I too used to work with Ivan Kwok when I was in Sir Michael Cullen's office. And I have a very fond experience trying to teach him how to say my iwi tu wharitoa. And he got there in the end, but he would always say, "Oh, how are you today, Miss tu wharitoa?" So I do have very fond memories of Ivan. But Mai, did you want to say any final words?
No, except to say that I really don't want to be speaking in another one of these Zooms because other people should speak. There are so many other people here with expertise and ideas that they should share, but let's not talk, let's do. It's incredibly simple to do this. And even if we can just post for each other, the one thing that we've done, the one time we spoke up or supported someone or wrote something or did something. So many people say, "Oh yeah, but you know, Mai, we love hearing you talk." Yeah, well, look, it's time for everybody to do that. So Marina, let's set up another Zoom and let's just make sure that other people have the opportunity to share.
Thank you. And did you have any final words, Commissioner Foon?
Yeah, and I just want to support Mai. Just want to acknowledge the team, everybody that's come together. I think our strength is, Kelly asks, how can we disseminate our information? I think if we look at Black Lives Matter, you have a look at the diversity of people that actually came together for a common purpose. your common purpose in whatever you want to do is right here in your neighborhood, right here in your workplace. And if you can get people that are easy, that have that common shared vision, and get them alongside you, educate each other in all aspects, so that you can actually start to convince the people that are a little bit more difficult to convince. And sooner or later, you'll have a bigger coalition of support. And it all starts from a little mushroom, and then you've got a big patch of mushrooms, a lot of spores going all over the place. But just want to give that as a final comment, but acknowledge everyone's participation today. Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Thank you very much, everyone. And we'll be sharing this a copy of this video as well. So, all right, farewell. Ka kite. Mā te wā.
Ka kite.
Ai, hei kona.
Thank you, ka kite.
Ka kite.
Kia ora.
Thank you. Kia ora. Ka kite.
Ka kite.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks. See you, Kathy, on Wednesday.
Yes.
Thank you, John Porter, around East Coast, and Dinesh. Thank you, Hatch.
Love you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work. Come.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.